Hello, and welcome to the Fast Forward Amy show, the show where we talk all about how you can lift your life and business with simple strategies. I'm Fast Forward Amy, your host and coach, and I'll bring you a new episode every Tuesday. Should you host a paid or a free webinar? I'm going to be the Grinch here and tell you my opinion. And my opinion is that webinars are a great way to get people through the door, as I already said, and to get them to trust you. Now, when you are hosting webinars, the way I've successfully implemented them in my business and many of my clients have is by offering a free webinar where you give a ton of value and then you pitch something. Now, the American way to do this would be to not give a lot of value and just be pitching your product the entire time. I wouldn't recommend doing that. So when I host a free webinar, some people will always be haters. I think I saw my dad posted a quote on his Instagram. His Instagram is @businessdad, by the way. And he posted a quote and he said, "Haters will hate, fans will appreciate." And it's very applicable to your webinar strategy, namely that when you host a free webinar and you are going to be pitching something, which I would recommend you do, make sure that you tell people up front. In a free webinar, I'll be like, "Hey, I'm Amy, and oh, by the way, this webinar is sponsored by my product. And at the end of this webinar, I'm going to pitch you my product and I'm going to get you to buy my product." I will literally say it like that. And I will tell them, I don't want you to be wondering about the price, anything. I want you to be focused on the webinar, but just know that at the end, I will try to convince you to buy. And for me, that works really well. But it's also because authenticity is one of my core values. And it shows in the webinar sales. I've done webinars with over 30% conversion rates during the webinar and even higher. And just I could say made a bunch of money on webinars, but I especially want to say reached a ton of amazingly happy, ideal clients that stayed with me for a really long time. So I love connecting with people on webinars. As you can tell, probably I like talking. So, I get to do that on webinars. Where was I? I was talking about paid or free webinars. So I would suggest you do it for free because you can get a lot of leads through the door. My webinars are usually, in both of my businesses, some of the top performing lead magnets, together with, for example, a Facebook group where people need to or can give their email address. A webinar is usually a really great lead magnet. Because people know that signing up for an actual training is a lot more valuable than just the umpteenth guide that they will download and not use. Now, if you would be hosting a paid webinar, you can do that. You can then also offer the replay and stuff. I've done that. But I would then, personally, in my brand, not call it a webinar. I would call it like an online masterclass or live masterclass or something, just to set the tone of what it is, because some people are used to webinars being free. So I would, by branding it and by naming it, already make it really obvious that it's not free. So for example, I will call free things I do, free trainings, downloads that someone can watch anytime. I'll call it a training or a tutorial. A webinar would be something live with me or that you can watch at a certain point in time. A masterclass will be something live or in replay with me that will cost a lot more money. And that is something that you cannot watch for free. So for example, last year I did the Money Abundance Masterclass, which sold for around 300 euros. I think 20 people attended live and they got the replay, and that was a masterclass. And it's basically an online workshop that took a few hours. So paid or free? I suggest free. If you're gonna do it paid, my suggestion is make it expensive unless you have a strategy. So the strategy could be that you say, I'm going to make a paid webinar, but it's going to be cheap because I'm going to get people through the door and already have them say yes to paying for something small, so that then I can still pitch them to something bigger or have them walk through my funnel to bigger sales. What I don't want you to do is to put all of your being and your soul into a really cheap webinar that you have to work really hard for to sell, because don't underestimate the fact that even something that costs like 10, 20 euros, you still have to convince people to buy. In my opinion, it's easier to sell something more expensive to fewer people than to sell to a lot of people that's for something that's really cheap, because it just doesn't add up. literally, it's easier to sell a 2,000 euro product to 5 people than to sell 1,000 people a 10 euro product. I'm looking at my crew to see if I said that correctly, but they're not calculating with me. You get what I'm saying? It's easier to sell to fewer people than to a lot of people, because us mere mortals who are not Kylie Jenner, we don't have 200 million people in our audience, you know? So if you're hosting a cheap webinar, either you pitch something at the end to more expensive, or you're like, hey, book an intake call with me or something like that. Or you're doing it as a way to have people like say yes and buy something for the first time that they feel good about so that they can buy something else. But don't do it as it being your money-making strategy, because then you should either be hosting a free webinar to pitch something or just a more expensive webinar. What I see most people doing is sell their first... Also, I love you. I'm sorry. I'm always being so rude and judgy. It's just, I've been you. I have sold a webinar for 29 euros that I had to almost like chop off my arm for to get sold to like probably like 20 people. And it definitely did not pan out the way I wanted to. And I did not make any money on it, basically. I want you to actually profit from the things you do. So just don't think that hosting a 10 euro webinar is going to make you king of the castle. Probably it won't. So then you might as well use it to get a bunch of leads through the door and convert them later at a good price point at a great conversion percentage. If you don't know about conversions, by the way, I think it's episode 64 where I talk about sales funnels and conversions. Definitely go and watch that. I never wanted to record an episode about sales funnels, and now that I've recorded it and we've published it, I'm like, it's my favorite episode. I've already referred to it so much. So yeah, I love that episode. I recommend free webinars, and I dislike seeing everyone always posting paid webinars. I said it. All of my clients listening, here, I said it. I'm sorry. Still love you. Wow, this was a really good episode, don't you think? Yeah? You can find all of the information I just talked about through the podcast blog. So that's always fastforwardamy.com/number of the episode. Talk to you next week and have a happy day. If you liked this episode, don't forget to come and follow me on Instagram as @FastForwardAmy, because every day I'm talking about business, marketing, and mindset on my stories, and I hope to brighten up your day there. So @FastForwardAmy, at your service.